G'day and welcome to Disc Golf Down Under. It's Matt here. And if you've been a subscriber of my channel for a while, you'll know that for a number of years now, I've thrown exclusively MVP. Well, that was until about 2 months ago when this disc snuck into my bag. So let's find out why the Kastaplast Berg has worked its way into my gyro bag. So you may ask, why a Berg, Matt? Peer pressure? FOMO? Kastaplast paid me? Well, no, I've seen a couple of friends throwing the Berg and I liked what I saw. It's also a very different looking disc with a puddle top. Now, if you're familiar with MVP discs, you may or may not know that they don't have a low glide disc. The minimum glide you'll find across the entire MVP range is 3. Now, glide is great in a driver or a disc that you want to keep moving forward, but it's not something I want for that short range upshot. The Berg is a putter with a speed one and a glide one, and I can say that no other disc flies like the Berg. So let's check out the specifications. So the Berg has a diameter of 211 millimeters, a rim width of 9 millimeters, a maximum height of 20 millimeters, a rim height of 14 millimeters, and a max weight of 175 grams. It comes in K1, K1 soft, K1 glow, K3 and K3 hard plastics and has a flight rating of 1102. Today I'm throwing 2 Bergs. The first is a K1 soft that's broken in and has seen well over 100 throws. And I'm also throwing this K3, which is brand new, freshly signed by Scott Stokely. Now, the K1 soft is a tad more flippy than it was brand new, so I expect the K3 will become a little more flippy also as it breaks in. There's a light to moderate left to right tailwind today for the flight test, and the basket is at 60 meters on flat ground. I'll be throwing some Hyzers, Anhyzers and flat shots to demonstrate the flight behavior. Okay, so moving on to how the Berg performs. And first you'll notice the unusual shape of this disc with a puddle top. Some people aren't a fan of this thumb track, but I actually find it comfortable and I feel like I have more control and finesse on my upshots. You'll notice that this puddle top is only on the top of the disc, and on the underside it has a more traditional flat putter profile. So I bagged the K1 soft Berg and I love both the feel in the hand and how it reacts. It doesn't have much ground play or bounce when it hits a tree. I also don't mind the feel of this K3 either, but it's a little harder and has a little more reaction to it when it hits things. And for upshots, I prefer a soft plastic blend. Next, how does it fly? Well, it's a proverbial brick at speed 1 and glide 1. You really have to put some power onto this disc to get it to fly. And out of the box, I found that the maximum distance I could get out of this K1 soft was about 50 to 60 meters. But after beating it in, it's become a tad less stable and picked up a smidge of glide. And the maximum distance I can throw at this at full power now is about 80 meters. So besides the feel in the hand, there's 2 things that I love about the Berg. The first is the reliability at holding the release angle. You can put this on any angle and the disc will hold it. Hyzer, flat, Anhyzer, roller. You wouldn't think so, but the Berg is one of my favorite turnover discs. Throw it on an Anhyzer, give it some height, and it will do a steady right turn. but don't expect much glide. The Berg has a 2 fade, but it's a very straight disc. You won't get the dump to the left at the end of the flight like other discs. The other big thing I love about the Berg is the way it flies. Now, as an aerospace engineer, it reminds me of a helicopter. You basically throw the Berg hard, and it goes, and it goes, and then it slows down, loses lift, and drops straight to the ground. Put a bit of nose up on it, and you can basically get this disc to land vertically when it gets to the target. I love watching the reaction of other players who've never seen a Berg before, and they think you've thrown it too hard, but then it just drops out of the sky at the last second and parks itself next to the basket. And the final thing that I like about the Berg is that it's very forgiving. It generally won't do big right to left or left to right movements. Just a gentle fade on Hyzer or a gentle turn on Anhyzer. Get your release angle wrong, and sure, it'll not follow the line you intended, but you're not going to be too far off target. And no big skips either with this disc that you might get from other discs that you actually put too much Hyzer on. Now, this disc is not about the aerodynamics. I feel I'd get a similar flight from a solid block of rubber, but that's the beauty. It's consistent, reliable, and probably the least wind-affected disc I've ever thrown. It doesn't care if you're throwing in ripping headwind, crosswind, tailwind. The flight is generally the same. But you need to make this disc work and give it some power. It's not a finesse disc, not a disc that I would consider putting with, except maybe into a roaring headwind. What about a forehand? Well, I'm not big on forehands, but I like the Berg for short forehand upshots. Now maybe it's the thumb track, but I get a cleaner wobble-free release with the Berg. And rollers, well, this thing is basically a wheel, so great for short, straight rollers. Okay, so who's this disc for? Well, this is a very polarizing disc. You'll either love it or you'll hate it. It's also not a disc that beginners will get the most out of. In fact, a beginner might become very frustrated by the lack of distance from this disc. The disc is for more established players that have good power control and looking for a low glide disc. Now, I wouldn't putt with the Berg, but if you've got a solid, powerful putt and you find yourself flying miles past the basket, the Berg might be worth looking at. Okay, so final thoughts. Well, I was a little unsure with the Berg the first few rounds I played with it, but it didn't take too long before that uncertainty turned into pure love. I love this disc, and after my putting putter, the Berg is now easily my most thrown disc. You'll know from previous videos that I love the Axiom Envy, and I have a couple of them in my bag, but I'm now pulling out the Berg instead of the Envy. I don't have to worry as much about the wind, and it's just so dependable. It's a bit like playing a computer game. You just range the target, power up the shot to the right level, aim and throw, and the disc will hold the release angle really well with very little turn or fade. And then as it reaches the target, it just drops out of the sky and sits on the ground with very little action. For me, it's the perfect upshot disc, and I'm grabbing it frequently for an unobstructed shot at the 20 to 60 metre range. Now, I recently met Scott Stokely here in Oz, and I just had to buy another one of these, so thanks Scott for autographing both my Bergs. I know that Scott loves the Berg as well, and if you want to see some real magic with the disc, just watch one of his around. He's a Berg wizard. Okay, the Kastaplast Berg. I love it, and it'll be staying in my bag for some time to come, at least until MVP clone it and make a gyro version. Hint, hint, Brad and Chad. Sure, it's not a disc for everybody, but if you want something with little to no glide and a disc that flies like a helicopter, you have to try the Berg. What do you think about the Berg? Is it a disc that you think you need, or maybe you already have one? Let me know in the comments what you think about it. Oh, and in my next video, I'm going to be looking at a disc I dub the anti-Berg. If you think you know which disc I'm referring to, leave a comment and we'll see who's correct. Anyway, I hope you found this review useful, and if you did, hit that like button and subscribe to Disc Golf Down Under for more disc golf related content. So thanks for watching, and catch you in the next one.